Introducing my dearest friend, Reverend Ana Quintana, who's here to give us the message about practicing peace. Come, sister. Let me give you a hug. Thank you. There she is.
Hey. Wow. Really happy to be here today. And even from your opening prayer, Victoria, I was feeling the presence, the peace, honoring the name of this temple, Unity Center of Peace. In a time where we know that, somewhat challenged to hold that. In Unity, we have come to realize that God is not a man in disguise with human qualities. But if for a moment we would go back to that idea of a human God, I'm sure we could picture a really sad God over the last week, but also a God that is happy. For there is so much good going on in the planet as well. There's so much transformation, so many acts of kindness, so many people truly committed to their spiritual evolution. A happy face because that principle, that idea, that presence knows the truth about this creation and know that our ultimate destination is a destination of power, of plenitude. Still, many of us ask ourselves, how can some of us behave in a way so distant from our intrinsic divine nature? What has been going on in that person's heart, soul, head, to be able to get to the point of inflicting and doing a atrocious act to the most vulnerable of our society, children and babies? It really makes us wonder about the second unity principle that says that we are indeed divine, that there's a Christ presence that is all good, all love. Is it truly true? Sorry for the redundance. Is it partially, like some of us are there, but others aren't? So because we're not all that, then it must not hold true? In moments like that, and I'm just speaking with my own, believe me, I had my talk about what I wanted to do today, and then Victoria sent me a text, and I said, no, I'm just going to switch. I'm just going to speak from what I am experiencing, what I feel I need to share, and it will still be a talk about the peace, because that's what I aim, that Spirit through me might bring you to a place in which you can stay hopeful and peaceful, because this is what it's being required of all of us who are sensitive beings. And I believe that in the Unity Path, we are the critical mass that is holding the consciousness for the planet. So I said, okay, it's about shifting this, and then towards the end, I will mention what I plan on doing in the workshop, having tweaked it too, so that we enhance and raise the energy of love and peace within ourselves, so that we might be the perfect instrument for that right now as we are sitting here. We go through so many emotions as we experience the dark side of humanity. Many of us experience hopelessness, going like, can we aspire to live in harmony as a humanity? Many of us go through powerlessness, saying, is there anything I can do right now to just help the situation there? We question our belief system. I had a congregant send to me a text saying, is it really worth praying. Of course it does, but when we're in that shock, we question, don't we? Sometimes we are like the ostrich. We become avoidant because there's something I need to do to have some sort of defense mechanism that can allow me to feel better. And going into my daily routine and, detaching might be a way to cope. There's a saying in Spanish that says, ojos que no ven, corazón que no sienten. Right? Eyes that cannot see, it's a heart that cannot feel. And many of us resort to that as a way to cope. Last week in my prayer circle that we have every Wednesday night, that we've been doing that for 11 years now, I was led to do a somewhat unitized tongue meditation, bringing in pain and asking the presence to transmute that pain. And I must say that it was harsh, because even if you bring the energy, you're tuning into that aspect, right? But as we have witnessed all of that and we see the escalation of violence, we ask, or we can't help but question the reality of evil. And at some point, it really feels a contradiction to our statement of faith that it says, there's only one presence, one power active in the universe and in my life, God the good, omnipotence. And sometimes when we are in that space of doubt, we doubt whether that is true or if there's really another power. There's God and evil, or good or bad. And at some level in our frustration, we go, well, we better be realistic. We see at some level the evil unfolding, but we must know, and this is where I'm bringing you spiritual principle, we must know that evil on its own has not intrinsic reality. It's not the absolute truth. It might be a relative truth at some level that we're seeing it being displayed, but it's not the absolute. Just like when I was 12 years ago, I was diagnosed with a really difficult type of breast cancer condition. That was what really brought me to the triangle. In the absolute truth, I was whole, perfect, and healthy. In the relative truth, I had a cancer diagnosis. And the journey was about how was I working my mind and my own being and at the soul level to bring myself out of that relative truth into the absolute truth, and that's how I heal completely. We must know that only God is real, only and absolutely true, with certain laws and principles. Evil has no reality of its own. It's really the absence of good. And this is something that I remember learning in my metaphysics class 20-something years ago. They compare it to an air conditioning. Okay, you go, okay. Think about that. Many of us might think that an air conditioning creates a cold air, but it really doesn't. What the air conditioning does, it really separates or gets rid of heat particles so that the air might be cool. But there's only one air, and it's just the cold air is the non-heated air. Same thing with us about this principle, that there's only good, and the evil, it's just the absence of that. But the only thing that is real, it's the good. And what happens is that in our process of being in this world, we can, in our ignorance, we can get so trapped in the illusion of separation. And when you're in that illusion of separation, it's the ego that is running the show with a certain desire for power, for control, and that all leads into, imagine a lot of people vibrating in that, and when that happens, we are led to chaotic, dark, and painful results. However, we must realize that we are all always doing the best we can with the level of awareness that we have, we are operating under. And I believe, and this is just my own way of placing spiritual truth into everything that I'm seeing, is that there's certain souls in the planet that are still very immature, that are I don't know, I see it more like from their animal nature. They have not really evolved to a place of awareness and compassion, while there are others that have maybe evolved many times, that have come to this awareness that there's more to life than just the survival. And many of us, and all of us, we are coexisting at the same time, right? And those of us, like many here, I would assume that in general, we've had privileged lives. Our basic needs, most of the times, I'm sure, in our lifetime experience have been met. And we've had the opportunity of exploring ourselves spiritually because our basic needs have been met. And now I can really learn more about my other non-physical side. And there might be others on the planet that haven't had that opportunity, that are in survival mode, that have been, because of their own process in their own environments, have met or have been encountered with a certain image of God, and all of that messes up in such a way that we get what we're seeing. But as those of us who are awakening more and more to our divine nature, we have this sacred responsibility of holding the truth and not being deviating into fearing that seems evil. Charles Fillmore, the co-founder of Unity, I love this from Charlie Fillmore. He used to say that there's two ways of magnifying evil. One is inflicting it, and the other one is what? Fearing it. So you might say, no, I'm a good person, I don't do any harm. But if you and I are fearing it, somehow we're magnifying it. Then I ask, what makes us vulnerable to fear? Especially in these times. What can we do not to fear? What can I do to be a constructive force and not a destructive force? And I don't know why the words that came to me was like, how can I help? Like the book by Ram Dass. And the answer is, well, it's more complex, but I'm just going to make it really kindergarten. Be an owl and not an ostrich. What does the ostrich do? Digs the head on the soil just to not feel, not see. And an owl has the capacity to move the neck all around in 360. It's a symbol of wisdom. And what I'm saying today is that, yeah, be an owl and be willing to question, be willing to feel, and then say, what is mine to do? How can I help? And the very first thing that came to me, and it's part of how I process all of this, is to truly pray for those in need. Last night I was with a friend, and we dedicated a whole prayer session for the women and the children in that area. And initially, we walked into that space, and there was so much turmoil and pain and so on. As the deeper we went, the deeper we started feeling a sense of peace that I'm sure, at some level, created some impact. There's never one prayer that can never stay without an impact. I have a friend from here. Years ago, she has an intense prayer practice, and she does a lot of prayers in groups. And she one day asked Spirit, show me the impact of the praying we've been doing. And she went into a dream, and she almost went into a trance. And they were praying for the earthquake people in Ecuador at the time. And she was taken to a scene in which she saw some men caught up in this rubble and how they were being saved, somehow miraculously. And she was shown that. I'm getting goosebumps. There are many times in our prayer circle where I go and I tell people, imagine when you're going through something really difficult and you feel hopeless and you feel alone. And can you hold the idea that somebody else who doesn't even know you is devotedly praying for you? What would that do to you? Let's be that person. Because it doesn't matter, our lives go on, but if out of my routine I can spare some time and say, I pray for you because I care, we just need to trust that that prayer that you're holding for the other and is creating some sort of miracle is also going to change you, going to touch you. For everything you do for another, you're doing for yourself. And when we feel trapped, like, oh, there's so much bad going on or so much evil, there's always another side of the coin that is completely the opposite. And I was I don't know if some of you saw the movie Sounds of Freedom about the human trafficking story and how bad it is, and it's a 150 billion industry and how many pedophiles in the world and so on. But in that story, you see also outstanding, brave people and servers, even in the government of the United States, who, there's a particular story, who he's willing to risk his life, risk their retirement because they had no more budget, to go out in South America and save an 8-year-old girl out of a cocaine drug dealer who was abusing her every night. So you see like the darkest side of humanity and then the counterpart of somebody that has so much love and compassion and kindness that is willing to risk his lifetime retirement to save one little girl, which he did. It's about the silent heroes that I'm sure are out there doing the work. Second thing that we can do as an owl is that we can really go deeper into our spiritual life. Become aware that your own transformation matters. I love, this is my favorite scripture, happened to be in the daily word of the day that I was born, John 12:32, that says, Jesus, as I'm lifted up from the earth, all men will be raised or lifted with me. It's what Gandhi used to say, be the change you want to see. And if we take that seriously, and we know spiritual truth tells us that we're one, that there's no separation, quantum physics has proven that. So if that is so, then it means that there's a side of me that is in fear, that is ignorant, that can be easily radicalized, that it can be obsessed, that can be violent. And so, if that is so, then I need to work on myself. And that is the basis of the practice of Ho'oponopono, right? That it's like whatever you're seeing out there, there's some connection to you, so work on yourself, and the more you do, the more you will see change. So, the more we heal some of these attitudes and those tendencies in us, again, I'm sure it will impact somebody else somehow, somewhere. And this is where I need you to not only be an owl, I need you to be a monkey. A monkey? And this is where I was going to show a video, but it's okay. I can tell you what it was all about. And you might be familiar. Are you familiar with the 100th monkey effect? Right? Imagine that in Japan in the 1950s, they did this observation in this particular island of a colony of monkeys who were eating sweet potato, and the sweet potatoes were covered in sand. And they enjoyed it, but of course, it was not the best taste because of the sand particles. And one day, this female monkey realizes, oh, if I wash off the sweet potato, it's going to taste better. And started teaching this to the other monkeys. To the point where once it reached 100 monkeys, all the other monkeys in separate islands started doing the same. Why? Quantum leap. That's why we don't need to think that the shift in this world everybody has to shift in order for this world to get better. It's a matter of shifting that critical mass. And again, we are that critical mass. And you might say, because I have questions, well, I know this is a planet of karma, of contrast, of duality, and this is how we evolve. And yes, we do, right? Because as somebody is facing really this excruciating amount of pain, there's somebody who's developing compassion on the other hand. And in this duality is where we see growth. But it's like, do we have to really, we have to hold the idea that at some point, this is not going to be needed, that we're all going to be illumined. And that's why I admire the Bodhisattva vow that says that there are certain souls that are already like in the nirvana state, and they keep coming because they are here to make a difference through service. Right? So that second aspect that I'm saying to you is like, work on yourself and use the spiritual practice to maintain yourself pure, because the more you do, the more you will be impacting out there. And if you want to get some special tips, I'm bringing my saleswoman back now. Join me for the workshop, and I'm holding this rosary. Years ago, I had a particular friend who was going through a crisis, big crisis, and she's not on the unity path, but she's a believer in God and so on. And she saw me like, oh, if you give me the recipe, I will follow it, and I will do whatever it takes, because everything that I've tried to do in my own external world hasn't worked, so give me the recipe. And I went to see her, and I would jump into the airplane, and I grabbed something like this that I had in my drawer, and then I said, oh gosh. And during that flight, I got a download of the 7 things she could do, and I was giving like all the unity teachings in one 7-step flow. So the workshop will be about that, and maybe we can all make it about, whatever circumstance or worldly circumstance. The point is that if you and I cannot really deal with our own fears, how can we really be a helper, right? So it's like that's the importance of us working on ourselves. And I believe that circumstances like this can be the perfect wake-up call to say, no. There's something I need to do on my own. The third part that I am really encouraging you to contemplate is to have a renewed appreciation of your life and your spiritual community. My cousin Christy, who lives in Jacksonville, this week I see her like many times like going, she has a son, and they have gone hiking and spending time this week, and she says, I just want to maximize the gifts that I have in my life. And so many of us because we go into our routines, into our comfort zones. We start taking so many things for granted. What if we see this as a way to say, no, I'm not taking for granted anything anymore? I believe that when things are really cool and dandy and all is well, from the ego perspective, we can even get spoiled. We want more. That insatiable ego is like about this and that. And the call today is about, no, let me really be grateful for everything. And you might say, hey, I'm not a materialistic person, I'm on the unity path, and so on. But then when it gets to, let's say when it gets to be about how involved are you truly in your community, there's like, oh, well, I got stuff to do, or you're partially here. And in my own experience as a unity person that I've been doing unity for years and years, I have seen that the people, including me, the people that have really expanded spiritually are the people that are giving. That are giving of the 3 T's: the time, the talent, and treasure. There's so much you can acquire by coming on Sundays and sitting there and receiving, which is great, but it's not going to do it. Right? And I want to have you pose this question to yourself, paraphrasing Kennedy. Don't ask what the church can do for you, but what you can do for your church, for your community, right? And as I was driving and pulling in, I'm like, this is such a beautiful spot in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, with all this greenery, with this energy. I believe that the people in Chapel Hill, in general, are people with a higher vibration. This is like a jewel. But it will be as powerful and impactful as you decided it to be. I would like for you to really go within and say, what else can I do to make this a really vibrant and thriving community in the middle of this? It's almost like Snow White, when Snow White going into the... Imagine what if all the spiritual unity or the spiritual communities, people there would say, instead of me fearing and going, where is this humanity going? It's like, okay, I can make a difference wherever I am. I'm going to walk out of my comfort zone, and I'm going to go to Reverend Victoria or Maria, the board president, and say, hey, I'm here. I'm in business. What else can we do? What else can we be? What if it's about creating prayer vigils that people come together and let's resonate, let's practice what we preach? There's a saying that says, I cannot do all the good that the world needs, but the world needs all the good that I can do. And the question is, are we doing all the good that we can do? Sit with that for a moment. Am I doing all the good that I can do? And today, as I'm almost finalized, I'm asking you to really realize that your presence matters. That your presence will ultimately impact the Middle East, Ukraine, and your next door neighbor. It's about anchoring on the absolute truth that there's indeed one presence, one power, one energy in the universe, and it's completely good. It's being willing to reach out in prayer and do your inner deep healing work. and it's getting involved. This is all doable. But we get comfortable in our routines, in our comfort zones. And this event that has touched so many hearts can be the wake-up call, can be what you needed to say, hey, no. We start here. I start with myself, and I make it a reflection in my spiritual community. What else can you do today to make it good? Come to the workshop. A powerful spiritual practice is really a mechanism by which we stay fear-free, without fearing evil and sustaining love, forgiveness, and compassion. Think about that renewed appreciation for your life and your community. Placing spirit first. How are you managing your time and your finances? It's really a reflection of your consciousness and your love. And I'm asking you today to love unconditionally. We are the critical mass. We can't let this planet go the wrong way because we are asleep. And many of us, we are all privileged to live in America. The land of the free. With our challenges and everything, but we woke up this morning in a peaceful environment, a plate to eat, a safe roof, and a spiritual community here in which we can come and be the presence together. Let us pray. I'm going to ask you to please just sit with your own soul at this moment. And whatever you might be experiencing, please know that it's the energy of God, the energy of love, moving through you. And don't resist it. Let it be. And let it expand. And let it expand around all beings here this morning. And trust that all hearts are being touched in a special way. This whole circumstance in the world, as sensitive beings have opened our hearts, can be the greatest wake-up call to get us back on the path that we really need to be at. How we are this power of good in whatever is doable for us, we need to answer ourselves. And whatever answer arises, just be loyal to that. Just said, here I am, God. I'm doing my part. Here I am, God, being your instrument by first staying pure in the truth that I know and staying alert and receptive to what is mine to do. And if I love this spiritual community of Unity Center of Peace, if I love the Unity way of life and what it has brought to my experience, I'm going to do everything to make this a place in which other people come and find liberation. And we extend this energy of love towards the whole city of Chapel Hill and North Carolina and the United States and the entire American continent. And we let it be in those places where love might not be reflected, but love through me and through us will find its way. We have that faith, we have that intention, and because if it's in alignment with divine will, which we know it is, all will be touched, all will be transformed, and the world of good that God intended for its creation will be established. For that and more, we say, thank you, God. Thank you, really thank you, that I get to see. And so it is. Amen.